drinking, alcohol and parties out in rural Japan. Let's do it. So out in rural Japan, a lot of alcohol gets consumed. It just gets consumed in different ways. So out in Australia, where I come from, in the rural areas, not uncommon that you just invite everyone around and you'd have a barbecue and you would bring enough beer and whatever to sedate a herd of elephants, and everyone would have the music up nice and loud, and possibly even have a band there and stuff. So totally different sort of culture. They drink indoors here. Drinking outdoors is a little bit low class, considered a little bit low class here. And when people drink, it's usually inside, and they'll invite a few people around and have a few sakis or a few bottles of sake, and they get on it. So they'll have just a couple of beers, and then they'll hit the spirits and they'll hit the sake. So they don't like the feeling of being bloated. When I was in my youth, the feeling of being bloated just meant that your stomach wanted more. So Aussies are massive beer drinkers, but here they'll just have one or two and they'll get on the sake. Being drunk in public is pretty much a disgrace. You disgrace yourself, and it's probably true in the cities as well, but probably to a lesser extent. But being drunk in public is an absolute no-no, and you never want to be seen drunk in public. And as far as parties go, most of the time it's not really a big thing. It's more like a get-together and have something to eat, and it's pretty lowbrow. So I know in the cities with the Japanese, they also don't drink heavily, or they're not very noisy at home, because a lot of them are living close to other people, and they generally go out to drink, and they're not going to go pull up a piece of park and drink outside, or go on the beach. Generally they'll go out to a bar and they'll drink, and they don't mind getting drunk inside the izakaya, but when they walk outside, they'll do their best impression anyway that they're not drunk. But to be walking along the street being boisterous, or to be seen drunk, even in the cities, this culture's still here. As for parties and get-togethers, where I'm from, any excuse for a beer, to get together and have a beer. But out in the rural areas of Japan, it needs to be an occasion. So people won't get together just for the sake of it, just for a beer. So when I was younger, you just call up your mates. What are you doing? Nothing. Come around, grab a case of beer, and get on it. And the occasion was drinking. But here, there needs to be an occasion for it to happen. So people will drink together and whatever, and sometimes they may drink a little bit outside their house, possibly on the porch or something, but that's after they've done a lot of work together. So they might work all day in the fields, and it's the end of the day, and someone will crack open the alcohol and they'll have a couple, and they might grill some food or whatever, but they'll only generally do this if the neighbours are not too far away. So even for these occasion sort of things, they're very worried about what the neighbours think and not to upset them. So I don't know the figures or whatever on alcoholism, but I think it would probably be the same here as everywhere else. People that over-consume alcohol generally do it inside by themselves, but for the average sort of person, they don't generally drink at home by themselves. And guys that really love their alcohol and they have their money, usually find them in izakayas. So little local izakayas, and they'll pull up a seat somewhere, and they'll have a gut full of sake, and it's usually a little bit warm. So they'll have a couple of beers and a little bit of warm sake, and just a couple of little snacks. So the big drinkers, that's how they do things, and they always have a little bit of food with them. So I'm not sure how much the culture's changed in Australia, but in my time, most people just went out drinking. Food was an afterthought, and generally people would get drunk, and then they would realise that they haven't eaten for so long, and they might go and grab a kebab or something on the way home. But in Japan, just drinking without having food, that's also considered low class. So the drinking cultures are totally different. So if you have a look at the Australian drinking culture, at least when I was younger, it was totally drinking to excess and binge drinking, a lot of, especially on the weekends. And this came about, I think, in the culture because they used to have 6 o'clock shutout. So they used to call it the 6 o'clock swill or something, 5 o'clock swill in the 40s. So everyone would finish work at 5 o'clock, and the pub would shut 1 hour later because these were the alcohol laws, because it was still strongly Christian society. And people would order 6 or 7 beers, go up to the bar, and they've got an hour to drink them. So they'd drink the 6 or 7 beers in an hour, and then the pub would shut, and then they'd be kicked out on the sidewalk, and they'd be vomiting in the gutter. So this sort of binge drinking culture has sort of always been around in Australia, but it hasn't been here. They haven't had that, and their drinking age is 20. So Australia's 18, it's 20 here, and because it's shameful to be seen drunk in public, you don't have so much of this binge drinking culture that you see in Australia anyway. So also where I'm from, when I was younger, the more someone could drink, the more sort of kudos they had as well. If you were a heavy drinker and you could hold your drink, and you could drink a lot, people used to sort of silently sort of respect that. But in Japan, it's not that way at all. Everyone's expected to sort of drink within their limits. So if you ever vomited or something like that, they just look at you as a child or something like that. So once you've done that once, your reputation's gone. So you're not expected to get angry in Japan, you're not expected to lose your cool, or get emotional, or get drunk. So these are all seen as childish behaviours. So if you started yelling at someone, you're seen as the child in the situation, even though you could be in the right. The other person's wronged you, but you've got boisterous and you've yelled. Just because you've yelled, people are going to assume that you've got a childish mentality. So it's the same with drinking. If you can't hold your drink, or you don't know where your limit is, people just view you as a child. The workplace culture, I've heard, can be quite boozy with the office, professional sort of environment. I haven't worked in that environment here, but going out to drinking functions after work and having to stay, to 10, 11, 12 at night, it's sort of an obligation if you work for a Japanese company, and that's why I always say you should always be self-employed. You don't want to be in a position where you have a wife at home, kids and whatever, and you're going to have to attend these drinking functions, and especially if you don't like alcohol, you're going to hate this sort of culture here. So there is a boozy culture here around the office, and I'm not sure who pays. I think the company usually pays for these sort of drinking sessions that they have after work, and you're sort of mandated to go. So keep that in mind if you're not a drinker and you go and work for these companies. You may have to turn up and bring your drinking boots with you. So out in rural areas, you never see women that smoke. When I say never, it is extremely rare to see women smoking. But women like a drink. can see women enjoying beers and things, but they'll just have one or two at the maximum with their food. You very rarely see a drunk woman. I've never seen one anyway, and I've been to a few parties and whatever, but yeah, very rarely see ladies drink more than one beer, because it's still a little bit old-fashioned here, and smoking's the same way. Possibly in the cities there'll be more ladies that smoke, but for people that live in the cities, maybe you can comment. I'd say smoking would be half the levels it would be in other cities around the world. I think it's still a little bit of a taboo with ladies, the smoking. I think the smoking rates would be far less in the cities as well. So I'd like to give a shout out to Sammy and Ted for your support on Buy Me a Coffee, Buy Me a Cat Food. We're just loading up here and getting some more snackies. You guys are legends. So once again guys, the cats are going to love this, and you guys are a bunch of legends. So it's definitely a different drinking culture to what I'm used to. I spent a lot of time in kitchens, and kitchens in Australia are very, very boozy. Shockingly so. So it wasn't uncommon when I was in the kitchen. We would start at 6 at night for service, finish at midnight, and then we'd spend an hour cleaning the kitchen and leave. And as soon as the last dish went out, it was 12 o'clock, we'd pull out a case of beer, and we'd clean the kitchen top to bottom in an hour, and three or four of us would drink the whole case of beer in the hour, and then we'd go out for a couple more beers later. And this was all the time. So it's a totally different view on alcohol. But I've heard that nowadays the younger guys are more into fitness and things, so maybe the chefs after work now go to the gym or something. I'm not sure, but definitely not in my time. If you wanted to be a chef or work in a kitchen, you know, you had to drink. Everybody drank, and it was a very boozy culture. But anyway, times have changed. I'm not sure really what it's like now with the younger guys, but I think they're more into fitness and stuff, possibly. So anyway guys, that's the drinking, partying and whatever out in rural Japan. And as always, hope you like the video.
Let's go back home.